Joining us now, Congressman, 7th District, Republican, up for re-election in November, I think, 7th of 2018, Dave Brat. Hey, Dave, good to have you.
Hey, John, great to be on.
So the government is shut down. The House of Representatives did their job. You passed the continuing resolution, which, by the way, included 72 months continued funding for the CHIP program that affects 9 million U.S. American children that are covered under that program. But here's the problem. See, Congressman, those CHIP parents, they work, right? They're falling in the income gap. They want a better job. They want higher wages, but they work every day, and they're Americans. See, they voted for Trump. So the Democrats kicked them to the curb because they're Trump voters, and they're shutting the government down over 800,000 DACA applicants whose parents took them here illegally and broke the law because that's their base. Tell me how this whole thing makes any sense, please.
Well, yeah, and the major problem is the mainstream media. Most people get their information, through the big TV programs, and they still, are saying the Republicans shut it down. 95% of the votes, right? If you just go get a seating chart, all the Republicans, I'm exaggerating by about 5, right? But all the Republicans in the House voted to keep the government open. And all the Democrats voted to shut it down except for 5. And so first of all, you just got to get the basic facts out. And so now it's funny on CNN, I was watching a little earlier this morning, Cuomo's on there, and they haven't admitted that the Democrats shut it down, but now they're saying, well, the Democrats had to shut it down to get a better DACA deal, and that's why they're holding out. So, I mean, we have a fundamental problem with the truth in this country. And so they shut the government down. That's premise number one. And then what's really going on here is the Schumer shutdown. They're doing it, and he's basically saying now, if you listen and parse all his statements, he's saying not only do we want a DACA deal, because we've already agreed that we're going to do a DACA deal, right? He wants his DACA deal that will increase illegal immigration. There's going to be side impacts from DACA. He won't do any of the Republican, E-Verify, shut down chain migration, border security, just all the rational policy we've been working on for decades. He wants just a clean DACA bill. He's in the minority, and our guys, so far have said no to him. And so I hope we hold our ground. The American people, it's about 60-40, want to end this government shutdown before you move on and do the DACA negotiation. But if you remember, the Democrats, after President Trump announced, right, he came down the escalator famously, they thought millions and millions of people, not just DACA and Dreamers, were going to be deported, right? 10 millions, they were making up numbers. 20 million are going to be deported under Trump if he wins. Now, not only hasn't that happened, but you've got a DACA deal in place for the 700,000 young kids, but now they want to jack that up and include all the Dreamers. And so you're back up to the 5 to 10 million number if you go all in, right? And who knows what the Democrats want. I don't know what they want. I mean, there's something like 12 to 20 illegals here. And that's what they want. And we've been through this argument, over and over and over on the cheap labor and the downsides. But that's what's in play. And so the Republicans, you're right, have to play offense. We cannot always go on defense. And so far, I think we're doing okay.
Well, look, I mean, if you look what they're just doing in California right now, which is if you get a driver's license, you're automatically enrolled as a voter. And to get a driver's license in California, you have to show no documentation that you're a U.S. citizen, right? That's the law. So now what they're saying is as soon as you get a DL, the driver's license, you get registered to vote as well without any documentation, which means you don't have to check that box that says, I am a U.S. citizen. And as you know, if you check that box and you are not, and you participate and you vote, that is a felony. You can go to jail for that. But see, they've taken that whole thing out. They've eliminated that, just like Terry McAuliffe tried to do in Virginia, and he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar when he tried to take out that box. And all that is meant to do, Congressman, is to encourage illegals to vote in elections, because where are the votes going to go? They're going to go to the Democrats. All right. So I mean, California has exposed their whole strategy. So they have to prioritize. They want this 800,000 to turn into 8 million, as you so appropriately pointed out, because they just don't want to negotiate the DACA applicants. They want everybody that came into the country illegal to have amnesty and a pathway to citizenship, and they'll all vote for Democrats, and they're backed by big Republican donors who are not giving money to Dave Brat, by the way, because they want cheap labor. That's why they don't want E-Verify. I mean, why would you not be in favor of an E-Verify program that simply says you're following the law, right? What is the argument not to have that? The only argument is to allow illegals to continue to work in violation of federal law. This whole thing makes no sense to me, and how the Republicans could possibly lose this PR battle is mind-boggling to me, Dave.
Yeah, well, we got to get out there a lot stronger. And I'm glad you just brought up Governor McAuliffe again, because I forgot to mention when you brought up CHIP. I mean, this is pretty stark as well, right? So Governor McAuliffe sent out a letter saying that the Republicans are going to shut down CHIP. You remember that, right? About a month ago or 2 months ago. And then Senators Warner and Kaine got political about it. They sent out a letter saying, watch out, your Republican delegation, they're not going to favor CHIP. When we already passed CHIP, by the way, right, just as a minor detail. We already passed CHIP in the House, and they're spreading misinformation again. And so then the icing on the cake is they vote for a government shutdown that ends CHIP, and they asked us for a 4 or 5 year program. We gave them a 6-year program, right? And so it really just is amazing. The American people do have to make up their mind whether they want a government that tells them the truth or just on a daily basis feeds them misinformation. And it is pretty stark, right? The Democrat Party is putting the interests of folks who have broken the law above the military and all the folks who are going to be affected by this government shutdown in order to score political points. And I don't know how you put it any softer than that. It's pretty amazing. But that's where we are.
Well, Congressman, it's their base, right? The Democrats' future of gaining and maintaining permanent power in the United States, which includes beating people like yourself and maintaining permanent status of rule, is to get as many illegals in as they can and keep providing them with easy ways to vote and pathways to citizenship. And if they can do that, they can overwhelm other Republican voters and turn states like Georgia and Texas blue, and then it's over. And then they have permanent status. And why they don't care about the CHIP people is, I'm telling you, because an overwhelming majority of CHIP parents, let's get what the CHIP program is. This isn't people on welfare, okay? CHIP is for working families that make too much money to qualify for their kids to qualify for Medicaid, but they don't have enough money, Congressman, in order to buy the insurance for their children. So they're working and they're living day to day, week to week, paycheck to paycheck. These are core Trump voters. So the Democrats don't give a rat's tail if these people live or die, because they don't give them any power. The only thing they do is go out and vote for Trump. That's the bottom line. How you can prioritize 800,000 people that came here illegally against 9 million of your own children is just incredible to me. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. And in that same group, after we had the financial crisis, we now have about 20 million people who have left the workforce altogether. These are American citizens who have been displaced and don't have opportunities. And so the goal right now, we're going to try to do welfare reform for able-bodied folks. That just requires the attempt to go out and find a job, to bring these people back into the labor force. And so along with what you were just saying, the middle needs to pay attention to the basic facts here, right? The independents. You're all right on the base and all that on the left. There's no way you can turn them around. But when the average American is just listening and independents on the side, they say, well, you got to be compassionate for the DACA kids and all that. But they're never told the full story in the media. The full story is we still have 20 million Americans who have been displaced and kicked out of work and can't find anything. The Republicans are trying to find them work. We just passed a higher ed bill that does vocational, career, technical education, re-education for seniors, the military, et cetera. And if you bring in a wave of another 5 or 10 million folks, those folks will never be able to find a place in the economy. And so, first of all, you got to take care of your citizens and have a rational, functioning economy. If we ever get to that point and they say, hey, we need more labor, hey, okay, I'm an open-minded person, right? I'll listen to it. But right now, that is not, we're nowhere near that point. Right now, we cannot get Americans jobs. And we certainly can't get them wage rates increase, and even college kids that have spent $100,000 are coming out and they can't find a decent job. Right? That's the common story. A lot of these kids are just going into service sector jobs, for less than they want to be making, and they're not living out their dream. And so the independents need to listen and hear this full story about how this is really affecting the country.
So how do you do this? I mean, how do you win this PR battle? Because right now, you know that the Republicans are going to lose it because the entire mainstream media is always going to side with the Schumers of the world. So how do you turn the tide, Congressman, and tell the truth and get those independents that you talked about to understand how this shutdown is simply all the Democrats doing, and it's about 800,000 people that are here illegally. The whole thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, the one good thing, the one thing that does overwhelm the media bias, and it's more than bias, is the sound economy. And so I think people are starting to tune in a little bit more to our side. I heard over the weekend, I haven't confirmed it yet, but there were some pretty daunting polls Republicans were looking at, plus 10%. Mm-hmm. Waves coming at, and that number went down significantly over the weekend. I mean, down to like 5. I was
5, yeah, we're down to 5.
Wave,
right?
And then I saw something in the 5% range already. I mean, just a few weeks after you pass the tax thing, and then after the Democrats are doing the government shutdown, and so you put those things together, and the independents, they just want some sanity. And so when they hear the mainstream media, they think, Republicans are, too tough or whatever. And they don't realize, we're the ones that just got this economy rocking and rolling again. We're for the kids. We're for getting all the folks that have been pulled out of the labor force back in, giving them a chance at life and feeding their family again and having that basic dignity. And so I think that economic piece will, over time, I mean, I think we're just seeing the beginning of it, and I think that's going to overwhelm the mainstream media, and they're going to be powerless to. You can only spread so much misinformation before you got to believe your own eyeballs.
All right, I got to take off. We're out of time. I want to thank Dave Brat for being with us. More information, go to davebrat.com. Congressman, thanks for being with us.